how will the voice future look like in 10 years? And when you look back from this 10 years, what was the single tipping point that made this future possible? Bret.
I think actually the most interesting thing that I'm looking forward is not necessarily that we're just going to have ambient voice assistants everywhere. I think that is a general trend that we're seeing more access to voice in more places, more devices. And so it's going to be pervasive. I think the more interesting thing to me is the rise of these proactive voice agents or voice assistant type agency. And they will, ultimately be moving us more along that path of convenience. And because what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to anticipate our needs or have general guidance around what we care about and taking care of things before we even think to do a request response type of interaction. And so 10 years, I think that's reasonable. It's going to be probably 5 years before we see something that is decent in that regard. But once it happens, I think you're not going to have that long for it to be adopted, because it will be a standalone application that will be for you, will fulfill your needs, and as long as people can develop trust in it, and that it'll be very widely adopted, and it'll be adopted more quickly if there is widespread interoperability for a lot of services that it can tap into.
Thanks. John.
I would echo what Bret said. I think he's spot on. The other thing I'd add to what Bret said, and Bret, thank you for going first, because it did give me a chance to think. The other thing would be the role of voice and the growth of voice and the needs for interoperability in the immersive gaming world. I'm not going to call it the metaverse, but I think this is going to get very interesting very quickly, changing the shape of entertainment and media as we know it, even more so than now. And that's a 5 to 7 year horizon as well.
Thanks. Monica, your view of the future.
Yeah, I want to say two things. The first one here is that voice is going to be a good extension of how we interface to software. Okay, so for example, we're working with the group in civil engineering, and we are adding the voice to their interfaces to all the building information, and you don't have to mess with the GUIs, and you can just talk and you can get all the 3D information of the building that you are in, and so forth. And we see that voice is just gonna be, it's a replacement of the GUI in general. So that's the first part. So that is going to go into work, go into, just anything that you're using the computer for. In the meantime, if you look at the personal side, I think that people will have these these earbuds. Okay, you can imagine that putting them on and you just go about your business, and you get to information on the entire web anytime you want. And it's going to get very personal, by the way, because it intermediates like all the kinds of different things you are dealing with. And it will provide a lot of help, like what Bret was saying, it's going to be proactive. And if you look farther out, the movie Her, okay? And it's absolutely going to be the case that we will like to have a trusted companion. And I think this is part of the reason why I think it is very important that we make voice open and available to everybody.
Thanks. Misha.
So I'm just looking and thinking from the perspective of Swisscom, and maybe I'm just a bit limited from that perspective, because what I think it will change definitely is the search behavior. This is where I see that people will use more voice to search a different content, maybe e-commerce site, maybe we are talking about media and everything. What I miss today, and I believe that it still need another shift in voice is anything in terms of security, better recognition for wide area of applications, in terms of recognizing and having a fingerprint for the voice. I know that today is possible, but not for the wide range of use cases and users. I also, what is important for us, especially in Switzerland, it's a special, maybe a bit special case, let's say like this, multiple languages. Nobody wants to take with which language you want to talk. We want to be able to mix languages and to search. We want to have simple voice assistant. We want to be able not to train our customers to use the voice assistant. Today, we do have to do that. We have to show them, hey, this is what you have. First, we tried, okay, just use it, but this doesn't work. You really need, somebody mentioned that, and I echo that. I'm expecting another paradigm shift in that way. Also, what is important for our topic, as a last point from my side, we would like to use the components in terms of technology best of breed. I would like to be able to connect in terms of mixing dialogue with ASR in a better way, not developing custom connections between the components and stitching them together. I wish that I have a possibility, and I think this should change with what I heard today, to easily attach open source dialogue and using open source ASR, whatever, or at least support open source APIs. I understand that the point today is to develop custom. So many technologies started like that in computer worlds, like, I don't know, Amiga or something like that. They were great, but they were not open. And that's where they ran. So I wish to see that voice is taking that leap of faith together with us on the telco side of the business.
Thanks, Misha. Reghu, what's your image of the future?
Sure. I mean, since Monica went for 2 things, I think I'll go for 3 things. So, I mean, 10 years is a pretty long time for technology to become super mature. I think the problems that we see today with noisy conditions, background noise, and all those, let's say, technical challenges, I think that'll be solved. And I think technology will be really mature, will be cheaper and democratized, meaning access to a lot of people, which basically brings me to the second point, which is once you have that, you will see a far higher adoption in the business and enterprise use cases. So I think it'll, all the consumer focusing that we're doing today will lead more and more into more enterprise use cases. But I think the most important thing that will happen in the next 10 years is the generational shift. So the biggest problem that we are seeing today is people stick to existing behaviors. It's hard for people to change the fact that they keep pressing the remote control. So they keep pressing the remote control keys rather than using the voice button on it and then use their voice to talk. And when I see kids of today, including my own kids, and how natural they interact with it and how much they actually interact with these voice AIs, I think this will definitely be the biggest, let's say, change in terms of seeing a much higher adoption. And I really hope that 10 years is quite a long time to eventually get us there in terms of the adoption.